Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and I want to welcome you to this podcast. Today's podcast is going to center on the job interview, where we discuss the 12 most common questions the interviewer is going to ask you. You're going to give them A+ answers. Today's podcast deals with the new nurse just graduating, ready for that first job, and the veteran nurse who needs a change, needs to come up with a different type of career, hasn't been on the job market for a long time, nervous, and you want to ace that interview. Typically, the first question that the interviewer will ask you is, tell me about yourself. Now, in my mind, they're not asking you about your hobbies. They don't care about that. They want to know what makes you the best fit for that job position. So, you want to decide in advance which of your skills and your career highlights best fit that role. So your answer, you should share as a personal and interesting story how you got started in nursing, then where you are now, and how the role that you are interviewing for is the next logical chapter in your life. I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've had some great interviews and some that didn't go very well. One thing you have to remember is you want to be yourself. I think people can spot a phony attitude a mile away. So be yourself. Come to the interview happy, cheerful, joyful, knowing that you're going to give your best. And let's face it, if your best isn't good enough, then it's not good enough. And you learn from your mistakes and you go home and you reevaluate and you try again. In life, we either win or we learn. But today, for this podcast, we want to do both. We want to win and learn and ace that job interview. So the next question, tell me about a time you failed. How did you deal with that situation? So in this situation, you want to demonstrate that you are humble, but you're also resilient and you're growth oriented. So your answer should be telling a story of a setback that you quickly recovered from and you learned from, and then you moved forward. It's always about moving forward, learning from that mistake or that setback. Question number 3, describe a time you went through a major change at work. How did you adapt? Now, nurses don't like change. In fact, people in general do not like change, but change is inevitable. And those who are looking for the best hire want people who will adapt to change. They do. So they're looking for people who are excited about change and not just willing to tolerate it. So your answer should tell a story about a big change that impacted you directly and that you adjusted to just as quickly. Now, a bonus would be if you could talk about how you got others on board this change. That's what the hiring people are looking for. Now, here's a tough one that you'll be asked. What are your weaknesses? Don't use the tired and old cliche, well, I care too much. This is about self-awareness. That's what this question's about. Self-awareness. So describe 1 to 2 situations that are not critical to the role and that ways you've been able to grow and to learn. What interests you about this position? It's a typical question that the job interviewer is going to ask you. So here, I've done some research. You really want to be able to tell them I went on the internet and I just studied the company and I looked at the position, I looked at the job description, and I found specific things in that job description that were appealing to me. I looked at your mission statement, for example. I looked at the culture. I looked at the customers, the clients that you see. And I found myself as a great fit for that role. The next question that they love to ask you: describe a time you motivated others. How did you accomplish that? Now here, even if you are not in leadership, they want to see what kind of leadership you do have and you have shown. So you want to tailor your approach to the situation and the personalities involved. So you want to highlight a time, for example, when you were a positive person, where you were persistent and you were very persuasive and you were able to motivate someone by your communication skills. And I will tell you that there's a few things that you really need to hone and have right out of the gate. And one of them is communication skills. Work on your communication skills. Every day, work on those. Nurses in particular must have very, very good communication skills, speaking skills, the way that you present your statements and the way that you talk and present a concise and impeccable statement. You also must have great assessment skills where you notice things. Your documentation is excellent. That's what people who are looking to hire nurses are looking for. Next question. Tell me about a time you set a goal for yourself. How did you ensure you achieved it? So you want to show that you can get things done, that you set clear goals and you followed through. That's what they're looking for. So your answer is where you pick an example where you succeeded in a very replicable way. In other words, you broke that goal down in small steps, for example. You made progress every day. You showed grit through these challenges. Now, grit is a wonderful word. That's what I look for when I teach nursing students. I'm looking for grit. I'm looking for goal setting. And that's what you need to pass nursing school and to get through life anyway, to get the best job, the job that you will love. Now, another question, what are your strengths? We talked about weaknesses, now let's talk about the strengths. Here you have to decide ahead of time which of your strengths best match the requirements for that role. Whatever role you're going for, that your strengths will match that. So you really have to rehearse all of this ahead of time. You want to look at what they're looking for in that job description. Really study that job description. Study the company. Research it. So what are your strengths? Here you want to highlight just 2 or 3. Don't give them a laundry list of your strengths. 2 or 3, and then back them up with a memorable story of the times that you shined. And don't make it abstract. Make it something crystal clear that I was on a committee and we had to set some policies, and I was put in charge of that committee, and we were able to do this. I was the team leader, and after 3 months, our infection rates went down 60%. Make it very specific. Not saying something like the morale went up and I felt like everybody did better on their jobs. It has to be something concrete that you can measure. Another question. Tell me a time you had to handle multiple projects at once. How did it go? Multiple projects. So here you want to focus on your time management. Nurses don't always have great time management. So you want to focus on your time management and your reliability. How reliable are you when you had to handle multiple projects? That's what they're looking for. Now your answer, you want to share an example where you used a repeatable system. In other words, you prioritized in a smart way, working smarter, not harder. Where possibly you delegated. You focused on the priorities. Maybe you had to delegate. Maybe you had to block some time off, where you gave frequent updates. But you see how organized this is. So how did you handle multiple projects? How did it go? Show that you were great at time management. You were reliable. Again, you prioritized. You were smart. You delegated. You blocked time. And you gave updates to your supervisor frequently. Another question that they're going to ask you. What's an example of a time you disagreed with a boss or colleague? How did that go? Now that sounds like a tough question, but you're going to ace it when that question comes up. You're going to knock it out of the park. So what they're looking for here is, are you going to badmouth your boss or the other person? Now, when an interviewer asks you this question, they're imagining themselves in that situation. So never ever badmouth some supervisor or another person. Don't badmouth your boss or your colleague, because again, the interviewer is imaging or imagining themselves and how you're going to respond. So you want to pick a time when you had a valid case. You communicated it professionally and you reached a positive resolution. Now I want to say that again. Give me an example when you disagree with a boss or a colleague. How did you handle it? Pick a time where you had a valid case, you communicated it in a professional manner, kept your poise, and you reached a positive resolution. Now, a couple questions at the end. I still think that these are important questions. They may sound like throwaway questions, but they're not. They're important. Any questions for me? The only question almost guaranteed to be asked is this question. What question do you have for me? Now, don't sleep on this. Don't say, nope, I don't have anything. Don't throw that away. What I want you to do here is ask questions that show you've researched the company and you're focused on success. You're focused on success. For example, what would success look like in the first 6 months of this role? Isn't that a great question? Ask them that question. The last question that they may ask you is, anything we didn't get to discuss? So don't say no. Do not say no. Before the interview, I want you to think about 2 to 3 main points that you want to communicate through the interview. And use your time with this final question or two to reiterate those questions that you may have. These are 12 of the most common questions that an interviewer will ask you. I believe you're going to knock them out of the park. This has been Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses. My name is Dr. Brian Smith. Thank you for listening.